In 2023, a team of European scientists drilled into the Siberian permafrost and pulled out something that had not been alive for 48,500 years, a virus, frozen since before modern humans existed, dormant in the ground while civilizations rose and fell, and the entire recorded history of humanity played out above it. They revived it. It infected cells. The scientists who did this were careful to note that the specific virus they revived could not infect humans. They chose it specifically because of that. But the lead researcher, Jean-Michel Claverie of Aix-Marseille University, was very clear about what the experiment actually proved. The real threat is not the virus we can study safely in a lab. The real threat is what else is down there. Ancient viruses that have never encountered modern immune systems. Pathogens that existed before the human species did. Things that have been dormant at geological depth for tens of thousands of years, that industrial drilling is now bringing closer to the surface every single year. And I want to come back to that thought in a few minutes, because Season 4 of Killing Floor 3 confirms something about the mire that changes everything about what this franchise has been building toward. The mire did not come from Horzine, it was already in the ground. And the real world science of what else is already in the ground is significantly more disturbing than anything the franchise has said out loud. Yet, Killing Floor 3 is set in 2091 in a world where a corporation called Horzine Biotech has spent decades producing bioengineered monsters called Zeds, using a substance called the Mire. For most of the game's first year, the assumption was that Horzine had developed the Mire in their labs, that it was a product of their scientific program the same way the Zeds were. Season 4 changed that entirely. An oil drilling operation in the North Sea, completely unrelated to Horzine, accidentally struck Mire while drilling. The substance was already there, naturally occurring, at geological depth, accessible to commercial drilling operations that had no idea what they were reaching. Horzine did not create the Mire. They found it. And that single detail is where the franchise stops being science fiction and starts describing something that real scientists are actively worried about right now. Because what real scientists are actually finding at geological depth right now is genuinely unsettling. In 2014, researchers revived a virus from 30,000-year-old Siberian permafrost and watched it infect cells. In 2015, they did it again with a different ancient virus. In 2023, they revived 13 previously unknown viruses from permafrost, ranging in age from 27,000 to 48,500 years old. Think about that for a second. A virus dormant since before the last ice age ended, before the woolly mammoth went extinct, sitting in the ground, still infectious after all of that. And then, in 2025, something moved this from fascinating into genuinely concerning territory. Ancient viruses revived from deep sea sediments, not permafrost but actual ocean floor sediments, caused intestinal inflammation, liver damage, and disruption of gut bacterial communities in laboratory animals. Not viruses deliberately chosen because they cannot infect humans. Viruses from the ocean floor in animals, causing real measurable biological damage. The same research found potential human pathogenic viruses sitting in ocean floor sediments thousands of years old. Human pathogenic, meaning capable of infecting people, sitting in the ground right now, accessible to anyone drilling deep enough. Now look at what the Mire actually does in the Killing Floor universe and compare it to what real ancient pathogens do when they encounter biology that has never been exposed to them before. The Mire rewrites biology. It does not infect in the conventional sense. It fundamentally alters the biological structure of whatever it encounters, producing entirely new capabilities, entirely new categories of creature, things that did not exist before contact with the Mire, and that operate according to rules that conventional biology cannot fully explain. Real ancient pathogens cause damage not because they are more aggressive than modern viruses, but because the immune systems they encounter have never developed defenses against them. Modern immune systems have been shaped by millions of years of exposure to the pathogens that exist now. They have no framework for something that existed before the evolutionary pressures that produced them. The Myers effect on living biology is an amplified version of exactly this principle. Something ancient, something that existed before the biological systems it now encounters were developed. Something that operates outside the rules those systems were built around because it predates the rules. The franchise calls it extra-dimensional. Real scientists call it a zombie virus. The underlying concept is the same, something from deep in the geological record that modern biology has no preparation for. And here is where the Season 4 detail about the North Sea oil rig stops feeling like a plot point and starts feeling like something else entirely. The Mire was struck accidentally by a commercial drilling operation, not a classified research program, not a deliberate scientific excavation looking for something specific. A routine commercial operation that went deep enough to reach something nobody knew was there. Real scientists studying ancient pathogens have been warning about exactly this scenario for years. Jean-Michel Claverie, the researcher who revived the 48,000-year-old virus, has been very specific about what actually concerns him. Not the viruses being deliberately studied in controlled laboratory environments. The concern is industrial activity, drilling, mining, construction, any human operation that goes deep enough into the geological record to reach something that has been dormant there for longer than human civilization has existed. And as deep sea drilling increases and permafrost continues melting, the geological barriers keeping these ancient biological materials dormant are being physically removed by industrial processes that have no framework for what they might be releasing. The North Sea oil rig in Season 4 accidentally struck Mire. Real drilling operations are accessing geological layers that real scientists describe as potentially containing biological material capable of causing new epidemics. The franchise is not predicting the future, it is describing the present. Now, here's the detail that connects all of this to the deepest, unresolved question in Killing Floor 3's current story. And honestly, this is the thing I have been sitting with since Season 4 dropped, and I genuinely cannot stop thinking about it. Everything the franchise has told us about the Mire points in one direction. It exists naturally underground. It has properties conventional biology cannot explain. It produces creatures classified as a separate category from anything Horzine engineered, and the deeper Moorcroft went into his research, both literally and figuratively, the more extra-dimensional the franchise described his findings as becoming. Which raises a question that changes how the whole story looks. What if the Dreadzone is not a separate dimension in the science fiction sense? What if it is geological depth itself? Real scientists describing what exists at geological depth use language that sounds remarkably similar to how the franchise describes the Dreadzone. Ancient biological material with properties conventional biology cannot predict. Pathogens with evolutionary relationships to current human diseases suggesting they existed before the diseases we know evolved from them. Things in deep sea sediments that researchers describe as potentially the source of future epidemics. The deeper you go, the stranger the biology gets. In the real world and in the Killing Floor universe both. And the Antarctic rift that Moorcroft opened, the one the franchise never confirmed was closed, is sitting above whatever else is down there. That is the real-world science behind the Mire. Not a fictional substance invented to give a game its central mystery, a concept that real scientists are actively researching right now. Ancient biological material at geological depth that human industrial activity is increasingly capable of reaching. Things that existed before the immune systems now encountering them evolved. And a genuine scientific concern that the deeper humanity drills into the geological record, the more likely it becomes that something dormant down there stops being dormant. The mire was already in the ground before Horzine found it. Real scientists are warning that things are already in the ground before we find them too. Subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. Because if the franchise is describing something real about what exists at geological depth, the Year 2 story has implications that go well beyond anything the first 4 seasons covered. And drop a comment. The mire exists naturally at geological depth, and an oil drill struck it accidentally in the North Sea. Real scientists revived a 48,000-year-old virus from geological depth in 2023. Does the mire feel like science fiction to you now? Because after reading what real researchers are actually finding down there, it genuinely does not to me anymore. Tell me what you think.